History, PK. It's all changing, rewriting 106 years of you can't gamble on baseball. The Chicago White Sox of 1919, known as the Chicago Black Sox, threw a World Series. And those 8 players, 8 men out, they made a movie about it, for goodness sake.
Seen it.
Now the 8 men aren't necessarily out. They're not in yet.
But they're still dead.
That's true. Good call. Good point. Glad you brought that up. That was probably in doubt. But Pete Rose and Joe Jackson and the rest of the Chicago Black Sox are now...
Joe Jackson stepping out?
Not that Joe Jackson.
It's got to be Shoeless.
Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Oh, it's not
Michael's
the
musician.
father?
No. It's none of the Jackson 5 or the family beyond that. The Classic Era Baseball Committee can now induct any of these players into the Hall of Fame. Now, there's a little, and you walked us through this, Major League Baseball decides if you're banned or not. The museum, which is separate from MLB, the museum will not consider banned players. So now that the ban is lifted, now the people who vote on behalf of the museum can decide who gets in. And not only are we looking back at Rose and Jackson and all these players who are no longer with us, but how will this impact, if it does, players who played in the steroid era, whether they've confessed that they used it or whether it's just believed they've used it or people think it's been proven in some cases, are those players going to get in? Is there going to be some kind of statute of limitations, time runs out, and eventually you're eligible?
You see a connection there. I don't.
I see a possible connection there. I don't know that there automatically will be one. But I can see where one thing might lead to another. We'll have to let time will tell on that.
Yes, because...
I didn't know we'd get to this point on the Chicago Black Sox. I thought that was after 100 years.
Shoeless Joe.
Yeah.
But
I know it's 100 years later. Everybody they know is gone. Maybe there's a grandkid out there who it matters to. I don't know. Sometimes you talk and you hear the family is, oh, this meant a lot to us. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
I was driving in this morning listening to the Baseball Network because obviously they'd be talking about that. And the one guy, I don't know his name, but he used to be general manager of the Mets, got white hair. He's on Baseball Network all the time. And he's on with Eduardo Perez.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah. I can see him.
Steve Phillips?
Yes. You got it. Good work.
Oh, okay. And so they're talking about it. And so Eduardo obviously has a connection to Pete Rose. He's Tony Perez's son. Played in the big leagues, and now he's an accomplished broadcaster.
So his dad was on the Big Red Machine with Pete Rose, and he's probably running around in the clubhouse.
He talked about sitting in the dugout and
there you go.
Pete telling him, hey, you're not here to screw off. We need you to do a job, and I want you to pay attention to the game so you learn the game, right? Mm-hmm. And so he has a connection. He calls Pete Rose the most perfect man he'd ever been around.
Yeah, what a great line.
Yeah, but the point is they were going to at 9:15 Eastern, which would have been 7:15 our time, they're going to have Pete Rose Jr. on to see what he has to say. Now, Bart Giamatti was the commissioner and put him on, went through all that stuff. They had his son, who's a professor at Temple, which is in Philly, and just going to town saying this will ruin the integrity of the game, blah, 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 blah. That seems way too strong to me because the rules of gambling relation to all professional sports, they're there. And we've had these issues come up, and the games continue to go on. He's saying if we get Pete in, it's in the USA Today, Nightingale wrote the piece, you can go look at it, why would any fan want to go to a game and all? Well, it's never going to stop or never be eliminated, and the nature and relationship of gambling to sports now has changed so dramatically. That doesn't mean if you're a player, a manager, or anybody who's being paid professionally should be gambling on that. But we've relaxed the gambling. It used to be they couldn't play in a casino. They didn't even want to go to Vegas and all this nonsense.
We can't go to Vegas. There's gambling.
Yeah.
Sequan Casino wants to give us millions of dollars to put a sign behind home plate. Done.
Right.
And I grew up in that era and heard all of that. And
Right.
you're living in Southern California, Phoenix, you hear about Vegas all the time. People are going to Vegas, right? My family wasn't Vegas family, but there were certainly...
Mine was.
My extended family was. If you extended out, it was. But the immediate family
You go to my mother and my sisters and my father, my dog.
They powered Vegas.
I was in Vegas a million times.
I have a great aunt who loved Vegas. But you go to Padre games and the stadium looks one way, and all of a sudden you go another time and there's like sequence plastered all over the place. Like gambling's okay now because they're writing you checks,
Right.
and the answer to that is gambling is okay in this circumstance because they're checked. It's still not okay for the coach or the player, the manager, or whatever.
Right.
But it is okay to put the sign behind home plate that's on TV for every game, every pitch.
Yeah.
Because they take the center field camera and over the shoulder of the pitcher.
You can bet at games on your phone and all that stuff. So we've changed that. That's not to excuse anything that he did. But it was a lifetime ban, and his life's over.
That has been a point that's been made here.
Right.
We don't ban dead people. To which some people have said, well, you could.
You could, but they didn't.
You could, but they didn't. And it's come back, the argument, it's literally called a lifetime ban.
Right.
Like if you were, and you weren't Christian, if you were alive when all this went down, and I look at Christian like, Christian's not 35. He wasn't alive when this went down 3.5 decades ago. Yeah, he got a lifetime ban. And he passed away and his life is over. So take the ban off.
Now it's up
I don't think everybody's good with that, but that's what baseball's decided.
But see, they don't
whatever.
decide.
No, baseball's decided the lifetime ban is over. And Bart Giamatti's, was it son or grandson?
It's his son.
His son.
63 years
his
old.
son is like, lifetime ban?
Yeah.
You can't take it off now. His son's ready to...
Right, because his
the
father
ham-
died
keep-
a week later,
Yeah.
and they're going to contribute stress, which probably had something to do with it, although Pete likes to say Bart was a smoker and overweight.
Right.
So-
All these things are true. He was a smoker, and he was overweight, and he was under a lot of stress. It was
That was a massive
it was
story.
A massive
Pete
story.
Rose is an American icon.
Yeah.
And for better or worse, everybody, Pete Rose, you
Everybody knew
hit
Pete
king.
Rose was.
I mean, yeah. Even if you weren't a baseball fan,
but there's
you know.
other plays. You know, he's Charlie Hustle, and he goes to Philly late in his career, and then in the World Series, there's a pop fly, and it's not his. It's clearly the catcher is this. Right?
That'd be Bob Boone.
And he, you know the play I'm talking about. He runs over, and Boone drops it. The ball, he doesn't actually drop the ball, hits his glove, pops out, and over to the side, and is going to fall to the ground in this key inning late in the game. And Rose is there and sticks his glove out and catches it. It was remarkable. It was surpassed only by Derek Jeter running to home plate for unexpected. What are you doing? What are you doing there, making that play for your team?
Flipping it to Jorge. The throw was from Shane Spencer, who went to Grand Canyon College, and then Jeter flips it to Jorge Posada, and they tag out Jeremy Jambi, but I don't remember the play.
Other than that, well, that became the greatest. What are you doing there, saving your team, making that play right then?
Yeah.
But that surpassed Rose.
And so the lifetime ban has been fulfilled. It's almost like a prison term. Michael Vick, he did his time. He went by the rules. He broke the rules, then he went by the rules, and then when he got out, he goes to the Eagles. Well,
How could he? He did such a terrible thing. Well, society decided what the penalty was,
and he paid it. The proverbial paid your debt, right?
Yeah.
And so Rose, upon death, that was it. But that's just baseball. I don't see how anybody could be upset with baseball because he paid the debt. And now they don't determine whether the man gets into the hall. That's the museum folks over there. They decide that. And it's full of baseball people who vote on it. We understand that.
I think he's probably going to get in, but I don't know that because the way it's set up right now, 5 people can block it out of 16, right?
I don't know that. I don't think he's going to get in soon.
Oh, really? Okay.
I would put him in. I would say, now what's the point of having a ceremony? It's like when you're on your 4th marriage, do you need to walk down the aisle in white and have a big old ceremony? Don't you do something like a little understated, a little private, family and close friends? Am I off base on this?
Speaking of Vegas.
way to draw it together there, Christian.
Right.
It's a drive-through.
And my sister has in her 2nd marriage. And in December, she hit the 40-year mark of 2nd marriages, which, is phenomenal because statistics say they don't work, right? And I've had others. But anyway, she had it in our house. She was the one who was in the court system. The judge married her. Okay. That's kind of the way I view this. The time for him to be up there and that glorious Sunday in Cooperstown, that's over. So have something and then have the display, and then that's the end of it. I don't see how that destroys, as Giamatti's son says, the integrity of the game. But I think Giamatti's son has another agenda. You killed my father.
Yep.
And
there's a lot of hurt over that.
Probably would have the same feelings.
You're right. There's a lot of hurt over that,
Yeah.
and we can all understand that even if we haven't been through it.
Right. You're largely responsible for my father, and I don't remember how old Bart Giamatti was.
I think early 60s.
Yeah, and so he's dead, and that was, 35 years ago? And this Giamatti's son who's upset about it is 63. So that means he was much younger, obviously, and he missed out on his father. I get it. Tragedy, big time, right? My wife went through that, 29 years old, gone. Understand that as much as I can without personally experiencing.
Right.
My father died at 85. So with that in mind, yeah, but I don't think it's going to just destroy everything we know about the game. But I respect his feelings. He's got a personal stake. And Nightingale knew that, which is why he called him up to get the interview.
Right, yeah.
Nightingale knew what he was getting when he picked up the phone.
No surprise.
Yeah, he's a veteran guy.
Yep.
So I understand that. To me, my compromise would be understated, put him in, acknowledge it on that. They usually do it in January is when they announce it, right? And then the ceremony's in July.
Right.
Because I can remember the greatest announcement ever in the little press conferences that they have before they go to Cooperstown. You had Cal Ripken and Tony Gwynn go in, no-brainers. Cal Ripken, big press conference with PR officials. Tony Gwynn, down right field at the stadium. He's calling on media by their first names. He's doing it himself. He don't need no big, fancy PR people.
Nope. He knows every name. He knows every face.
Thank Joe. Yeah. There you go. He's like friends with all of them, right?
He was, they call him Mr. Padre for a reason.
Yeah, and I'd been around him a little bit when he was doing San Jose State basketball, and I saw that firsthand, so that was really cool for him.
He was a people person.
So just do that. And I think the ban, if I'm a player, the ban or the act of gambling and what Rose went through resonates to me even more. He never got, the guy who has the most hits in the history of the game never got his final acclaim, which is the capper of all individual baseball experiences. And he didn't get it. And he'll never get it. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to listen to what Pete Rose Jr. had to say because I'm interested in what he thinks. This is a guy who played in the big leagues a little bit.
He did.
And Eduardo said that he thought the Pete Rose thing severely damaged Pete Rose Jr.'s opportunities.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Guilty by association.
Yeah, he said nobody wanted to touch him because he was a big league player for a little bit, and he thought that affected him, and then he thought that he could have gone into broadcasting, but nobody wanted any part of that. So he, in a sense,
is paying the price too.
Yeah, according to Eduardo Perez.
Coming up next, we will continue our spring football tour with the Cincinnati Bearcats, who are on both BYU and Utah's schedule in November. Got to tell you about our title sponsor. DJ and PK is proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. Stay with us. We are going to talk some Cincinnati football next, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Joining us now is beat writer for the Cincinnati Bearcats, works for the Cincinnati Enquirer. His name is Scott Springer. Scott, good morning.
How are you? I'm enjoying the rainy Cincinnati spring weather today.
We finally have some sunshine. We had it all last week. Was cloudy and rainy, but sun is out. And I was wondering, you're working for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Did you know a guy named Peter Bronson who worked there?
I did, yeah. He was a pretty solid dude and won many awards, as I recall.
Back in the 80s, I went to Arizona State, got a job in newspapers at a town called Casa Grande, the Casa Grande Dispatch, a little 8,000 circulation off the freeway between Phoenix and Tucson. And Peter Bronson was my first city editor. How about that?
There you go. I can't tell you the last time I saw him, but definitely know of him from. I've worked. I'm from here. I've worked in this town since 1990. My first years were in Tampa in radio. I actually did radio before I did newspapers and .com stuff. So I haven't found real work yet.
He taught me a lot about journalism. I actually reached out to him several years back and just said, hey, you were a significant influence in this media career that I've been able to carve out, and I thanked him for it. So a funny little connection there with you being from Cincinnati. So the Bearcats are an interesting team. We know they had reached the playoff and all that. And since joining the Big 12, I looked this up. Did some research, obviously, to be prepared for this time. And against the Power 5 are now 4 schools since joining the Big 12. They're 5-15 against those schools, and of those 5 wins, only one has come against a team above 500, and that would be my alma mater, ASU, last year. What level of confidence do you have? They were 3-6 in the conference, 5-7 last year. That this thing can be better than what it's been the first couple years in the conference.
Well, you get from the staff that they're confident, but I don't know that there's any other way to play that. You look at the team and look at the transfers that came in, and they keep getting better and better kids and stronger kids. And that was one of the things when they came into the Big 12 initially, and I think BYU included. I think everybody came in like a year early, so they were not on the hoof. They didn't look like some of the other teams. And so they needed to upgrade there in terms of personnel and not really handing Scott Satterfield a pass here. But I think one thing that gets forgotten in all this, particularly with the home fans, is that this league is far superior to the AAC or anything that they've been in since when Brian Kelly was here. They were in the Big East for like 3-4 years and did well there. But, when you're trying to compare the American Conference and the Big 12 competition, just not the same. And even Luke Fickell's teams, I don't think would have done as well as they did if they were in the Big 12. Now, he did accumulate a great deal of talent. He had a ton of draft choices, and those guys would have been pretty solid. But, even the year that they go to the semifinal and play Alabama, they had some hiccups along the way, nearly losing to Tulsa. I believe they had game day come, and that day they played Tulsa, and that game could have gone either way. So and that would have taken them right out of things. So the competition is a lot tougher. Everyone else is competing and recruiting and looking for the same guys. Obviously, BYU's done a great job, but I think some of the other schools, UCF has struggled a bit coming in initially, and it's growing pains, I guess, or at least you hope. I think they've made improvements. I think they have a chance to get to a bowl game, and probably if they don't, he's on the hot seat, I'd have to think. I don't know that, but, everyone has tremendous buyouts anymore. You and me, if we leave, they tack you out the door and see you later. But everybody else has buyouts, and, they're substantial. So you have to really think about what you're doing and when you're signing a coach and when you're getting rid of a coach.
I think teams have a level of optimism if they have a returning quarterback. And Brendan Sorsby threw for about 2,800 yards last year, 18 TDs. Ran the ball, was second in rushing, just under 500 yards. So I think they should have a level of confidence offensively. Is that accurate?
Yeah, having him back was a plus, and he came back pretty quick. And he did have other suitors, people that were after him and other offers, and he kind of stayed the course. So that's always refreshing to see in Division I football anymore. And, he ran for 9 touchdowns, so he's definitely a weapon. Threw the ball better in the first half of the season than he did in the second. So, they're not always fully disclosing injuries. I think he might not have been 100%, but, you get that way late in the season, everybody's kind of in the same boat. So I like the new receivers that they brought in, but there again, you're bringing in new guys, and like everybody's in the same boat. You're taking all of these me's and having to turn them into we's. And if you can do it, you got a team. If you can't, then you struggle. Then you flip the roster again the following year. It's a very unique time in college football.
Yeah, those transfers you speak of, Cyrus Allen from Texas A&M and Caleb Goody from CSU. There's a couple other guys from lower level schools that I think that have an opportunity to be good there. They ran the ball very well last year, averaged over 5 yards a carry. Now Corey Kiner gained about 1,100 yards. I believe he signed an unrestricted or undrafted free agent deal with the Niners. I know they've got Evan Pryor, who showed a little bit last year, averaged 7.5 yards per carry in backup duty, and then they also got a transfer from Wisconsin. Should we expect them to be able to continue to be good as far as running the ball?
I would think. I think Pryor's bulked up a little bit. So, last year he was kind of the home run hitter, big play guy coming in place for a series with Kiner. Kiner would grind the yards out and he was really good at making people miss. And Pryor was kind of the breakaway guy, and I think he had a couple receptions for long yardage too, in addition to his long touchdown. So I know every runner wants the job full time, but Tommy Walker came in from Wisconsin, and then before that he was at Oklahoma. Actually played against the Bearcats at Nippert Stadium when he was with Oklahoma, and so I think last year with Wisconsin in the Big Ten he was over 800 yards. I don't know the exact figure. But they really liked what they saw out of him because they thought they were just kind of getting a bigger. He's 5'9", but like a 225 size back, and he showed them some moves and some breakaway speed too. So they like that. They've got a kid, Chance Williams, that didn't get to play a whole ton last year. Was hurt some, and he came from Grambling last year, and he's shown a lot of moves. They got a variety of guys. I think Pryor and Walker are your top two there, and they have some new linemen. They picked up a nice offensive tackle from South Dakota, Joe Cotton, who was pretty highly sought after. Now, I can't tell you how South Dakota's line was. I don't live there, but, I mean, this dude's like 6'8" and 320 and takes up the doorway. So that's what they brought him in for. And, 2 other starters, or 3 other starters on the line, and then another transfer that they picked up from Ball State that he looks like, a Hulkamaniac, super Avenger type, freak in the weight room type guy. And he came from Ball State, and the guys from the Mid-American Conference, that's still good football. And you look every year, a Mid-American Conference team beats somebody good. And those kids, they have a big chip on their shoulder that they're at a MAC school. And so I think he's looking at this as an opportunity to play some big-time football. So I think they're all right on the line. And then I don't mean to carry on here, but I don't want to forget Joe Royer, the tight end. The tight end group is probably the best group that they have. And Joe Royer caught 50 balls last year. And what that means is he beat Travis Kelce's all-time reception record for tight ends. And last time I checked, Travis Kelce's pretty good. So Royer is a local kid, but went to Ohio State and had some injury issues. His mother passed, had a handful of things, and it just worked out for him to come home. And then they actually got another guy from Ohio State who won the national title last year, Patrick Gerd, who's more of a blocking tight end. So they'll use the 3 tight end sets quite a bit.
Scott Springer, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I said that's your offensive rundown. I just didn't want to forget Joe Royer because he's a big piece of this team.
I had him on my list. I was going to get to it with his 50 receptions, but you covered it, so we'll move on. Scott Springer, Cincinnati Bearcats beat writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer, joining us. Defensively, as I look over the roster, And the lineup there, a lot of transfers, particularly in the defensive secondary, but it looks like there's some stability at the linebacker position with 3 guys, correct?
Right, yeah, 3 returning starters at linebacker, Jack Dingle, Jake Golday, who was a transfer last year. They found him out of Central Arkansas, and him and Dingle are both pretty similar, 6'4", 240 with speed. Aggressive dudes, and then Jonathan Thompson is your other starter. They've got a guy coming in. Simeon Coleman was all freshman team, Big 12, and some other younger guys that got playing time last year. One of the upsides of the down year was some young guys got some playing time, so that they're really deep at linebacker. And if you talk to Scott Satterfield, he would say linebacker will be your number 2 room behind tight end on the team right now if you're rating positions.
Yeah, that makes sense. And are we done with the Godfather references with Dante Corleone as far as the defensive line?
Oh, I think it's going to stick. Anyone that, with that name, it's with him forever. I mean, he's got a hamburger named after him at some local joint. It's actually pretty good, but it's not very healthy. It's like a burger with barbecue on it and an onion ring. And so if you're looking to cut pounds, the place is called Bucketheads. There's a free plug on the west side of town. But the Godfather burger is good. But, I mean, that ought to do you for food that day once you eat that sucker. That's about 3 meals in one. But, yeah, he's back. And the key thing with him is he takes up space, often double, triple teamed. And so if he can't do it himself, that frees somebody else up to do it. And, they've picked up some guys. They've got some guys that are healthy now that were hurt last year that are back playing. Micah Coleman was a transfer from Eastern Michigan, and he missed the whole year. And I think they figured on him starting. And Jalen Hunt was a guy, I think he was at Michigan State at one point, and he missed a good bit of the year. And then there's other guys that they picked up that, again, they interchange a lot of dudes. Dante doesn't necessarily play all 4 downs. It's a lot of ins and outs with Tyson Vite's defense, which is the 3-3-5, which if you played Iowa State, you've seen it. That's what they do. So a lot of defensive backs, and then hopefully these new defensive backs, in addition to the handful that they kept, will be able to get it done. They're all guys that played somewhere and played a significant level of football somewhere else. So that's a great unknown right now, though, to be honest with you, the defensive secondary, because you haven't seen them play yet. But, everyone's in the same boat. It's, I was talking with Coach Satterfield about preseason polls, and if you look at the preseason polls in the Big 12 2 years ago, West Virginia was picked last and won 9 games and a bowl. And then last year, your alma mater was picked last and makes the semifinal. So that kind of shows you what we don't know, I guess.
I know, that was so crazy. BYU was in the conference, and we cover BYU and Utah heavily here. And BYU was in the conference for 2 years, so we had a little bit of information, but still not a whole lot. I think you need like a whole cycle of like 4 years to really get a better feel, at least from my perspective of covering the conference. I'd covered the Pac-10 and worked in Arizona, worked in California, and then here in Utah when the Utes joined. And so you felt like, for me, I need to get more information. I need to like a whole cycle of class, essentially, of college kids before I really get a feel. And right now, as I look at it, you brought up West Virginia. We remember that. And BYU was 5-7. And Colorado stunk, too, that first year. And then the second year, they turned it around. And the Sun Devils are just coming off their worst 2 years ever, thanks to Herm Edwards, that they had ever had. And then out of nowhere, they win the thing. So I don't know that I take these polls seriously. Do you foresee maybe some settling in terms of what we think is going to actually happen this next season, or are we going to be upside down again?
Upside down wouldn't surprise me the way it is, because I think that's the nature of the portal, and you've seen it a lot in basketball too, where more teams were able to compete. Now, basketball, I think, did even out a little bit this year where you didn't see as many Cinderellas in the tournament. But football-wise, you saw teams competing. And, who wouldn't want Cam Scatterboot? That little booger's tough. I don't want. He's not little either. It's a bowling ball with a football in his hand. But goodness, they were very good. That actually was Cincinnati's better win.
Yeah,
and they were 5-2 at that point.
Right.
And that's when everyone thought, well, shoot, just one more game and you're in a bowl. And then somehow they could not win the next 5 games.
Yeah,
and so that part was highly disappointing. And the guys that are left from that team, they remember that, and hopefully they use that to their advantage.
Well, Scott, we appreciate your rundown. You were thorough, as I knew a newspaper guy would be, as an old newspaper guy myself, with the emphasis on old. And we thank you for your time.
See ya.
All right, it's good catching up with the Cincinnati Bearcats. See what they can do this season. Got a returning quarterback. Got a bunch of transfers, as most teams do. Got a real good tight end, and got the Godfather Corleone anchoring the defensive line. Man, that guy's a big dude, 320 pounds. Yeah, for sure. He's a big dude. Speaking of big dude, so is my guy Cody Johnson. I don't know if you've ever seen him in concert. I have. We're giving away Cody Johnson tickets all week long on DJ and PK. Tune in during the 8 o'clock hour for your chance to win. So in a couple hours, we will give away tickets to see Cody Johnson, a pair of tickets at the amphitheater out there on the west side. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk to our coach, Steve Cleveland. He will join us right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Speaking of greatness, who greater than Steve Cleveland joining us now? Coach, good morning.
Good morning, fellas.
Hey,
you're a piece of work.
I always have been, haven't I?
Yes, you have.
We got to do what we got to do. I was off last week, and then the announcement was made later in the week of Brian Santiago. You brought him to Provo. I mean, he's from Provo, but you brought him to BYU is probably more accurately. So your influence decades later, after you have moved on and now retired, is still being felt. What's your assessment of Brian? Because you knew him as a young man and you've watched him develop into who he is today.
Interestingly enough, when I got the BYU job, I probably a day after that I had been contacted and so forth, Brian was at my front door. And he says, I got to go with you. And at that time he's working in business and he was living in Fresno. And I said, Brian, I said, I've got a staff together. We're all junior college coaches. I said, number one, but I don't know if I can hire. We don't have a position. And so we keep talking, and finally he says, well, what about a director of basketball operations? So a lot of people have that. After about a half hour on the phone with the guy, he talked me into getting a job. and I love Brian, and he's so passionate. We've become such good friends. When he played at Fresno State, we played a lot of City League and had him over for dinner, and he and his wife Kim, and so that relationship started a long time ago. But certainly a young man that I have so much respect for. Was so happy that he got the position, and you know how passionate he is about everything.
Yep.
So it's I'm really happy for him. I've had an opportunity to go to the press conference and to talk to him afterwards, and to see his family and extended family and friends and a lot of former players there was pretty special.
Yeah. Talking with Coach Steve Cleveland, the press conference for Tom Homo when he announced his retirement. Afterward, I'm mingling around and Brian's there, and I knew him when he was a kid, when he had that desk in your office. He didn't even have an office; he just had it on the other side of your room in the Marriott Center. And I'd been in there.
Hey, I would say that doesn't happen anywhere in America except in our situation. I mean, I shared an office for 4 years, and he's not only working as an ops guy, but he's got a side business going on. I could barely get to my desk, and he was such a piece of work, but I just loved him dearly.
Yeah.
And And, what great love for 27 or 28 years he's had for BYU.
Right.
So I could not be happier for him.
And I had a chance to speak with him briefly, but he looked me in the eye, and I looked at him like, hey, what's up? Because I knew you were basically the assistant to Tom, Tom's wingman, as Tom called him during the literal phrase that he used. And he looked at me and he said, I want this job. And the way he said it, and if you know Brian, it's like, it like pierces you when he said it with such conviction. And the way he looked at me, like, I thought it was time to get an MMA ring or something, or he was going to check me into the boards in hockey or whatever. And I thought to myself, yeah, I get you, Brian, because I've known your passion for 3 decades almost. And I hope you get it, because as somebody who wants something that bad is probably going to go to just about any length to succeed at that level. And so we'll see what happens here, but I expect him to have success.
Oh, I do too. He's got that Puerto Rican blood in him. He's pretty passionate about things, and I've never seen a guy get more excited about the simplest things. But he's always been that way. And I think maybe his most redeeming quality, and as I've watched him at BYU, is his relationships with the young people. And obviously he has relationships with the coaches, but he had such a connection. I watched him, whether it was a women's tennis team or the basketball team or, football, whatever it was. And my years of watching him and being around him, you just knew how authentic it was. He just was in a situation where he loved everyone. They knew it. They trusted him. And everybody loves me. And there was nothing fake about it. It's just who he is. And that passion that he has for people and for BYU, it was evident in his press conference, and it's been evident for a long time. And, I have had so many, I could write a book just in my life with Brian, but I can still remember one of our very first games. And at that time, he was sitting next to me on my left side, and then Dave was on my right side and the other assistants. And we're not into a game, and I don't remember who we were playing. But Brian, he's gotten hot. He's yelling at the officials. He's just gone ballistic. And I'm sitting there, Brian, shut up. Trying to get him, just calm down, dude. And finally, he calmed down a little bit. And then something else happened, and he goes off. He's standing on the floor, like he was the head coach. And I said, that's it. Get at the end of the bench. He's like a little puppy. He turns around, got his head down, and he sits down at the end of the bench. After the game, I said, you don't have to sit down here, but you're not going to behave like that in games. And, it was just so Brian and what he did. And he was so disappointed. He set his head down, walked down, sat down. And he never said another thing that game. But we all had learned lessons. And I think anybody that's had a relationship with Brian knows how authentic he is and how much he loves sports, and how much, more importantly, how much he loves the student athletes.
Coach Steve Cleveland joining us. I know you've been around the BYU basketball program. What can you tell us as they get going with some workouts and practices? Because there's so many new guys, which isn't unique to BYU, obviously. It's the situation and the nature of the game. But, they've got some high-profile guys coming in and some decent returners. It's going to be fascinating to see how Kevin Young blends and molds this thing together.
I was with Kevin a day ago. In fact, I just wanted to go watch practice. I had not seen AJ play, and so I went over there, and they're practicing in the mornings for about an hour and a half. And just watching practice and watching it. One of the really cool things about AJ, I was just sitting, and he has no idea who I am. They're in between drills. He comes over and he says, "Hi, I'm AJ." He says, "Well, what's your name?" And I said, "Well, I'm Coach Clee." And we talked a little bit about it. And but I didn't expect that. But as I watched that 90-minute practice, this Wright is going to be the point guard on this team, and he's going to have a significant role from Baylor, and he's going to be a huge help. But you probably have a difficult time telling AJ that he's not going to handle the ball. I watched practice, and he was playing the point guard. And I talked to Coach Young, and he says, the funny thing is he's really comfortable with the ball in his hand. And he says, but I think what he'll find out over the course of the season and practice and games is that it's not easy. It takes a lot out of you to handle the ball and do the things that point guards do. He says, so but we'll play them together. I'm not going to stop AJ from getting the rebound and taking it and going the length of the floor. I mean, that's what he likes to do. And he assured me, he goes, they'll figure it out. But right now, because Wright's not on campus and he's been hurt, as I watched, AJ was a point guard. And he's not a selfish player. He's very selfless. He hits the open man, but he's got such size and length. I thought that watching him initially, I thought he looked a lot like Paul George, but he's even got a better body. I mean, it took Paul probably the 2 years playing in Division I basketball to get a body like AJ already has. And so it's obvious that you can see him in a situation where, he's going to have an impact immediately. And he can do it at both ends of the floor. But I just like how he treated his teammates. There is a connection with these guys. And you start thinking, Dawson Baker's hurt right now. You got Dawson Baker, Richie Saunders, Kana coming back, Voskovich coming back. I was also surprised and really happy about watching Brody Keselowski. I wondered where he would fit in. If this was a situation that he could have an impact. And just talking to Coach, and we said, well, he has to be a three-point shooter, a 40% three-point shooter.
He's deadly. If he's open, it's going down at least 40% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And in practice yesterday, he was killing it. And it was fun to see that and to see him have an impact, because we all know that you can't have enough three-point shooters.
Right.
But that really opens the floor for, everybody that's there when you're knocking threes down. That seems to be Coach Young's mantra, is that we're going to shoot threes. And he's got a team that can do that. And, with AJ, and the thing I liked about this recruiting class is like Davis from Southern Illinois. You've got Diamande, who's a freshman out of Washington. You've got Tyler Burns, who's from Idaho. I love it when guys transfer. They've been in programs. They're 2 or 3 years older, more mature. And for guys that none of us even know who they are, those are some of the guys that are going to have an impact, who have played 2 or 3 years and have gotten stronger and gotten better and, really are going to help the team.
Yeah, sort of. I think you're describing what Mag did for the Cougars last season.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I sat there and I was talking to a couple of the coaches, and that was the first thing I asked them. I said, how are you going to replace Mag? Because he was the heart and soul of that team. And, and I don't know who that is, but they brought in some bodies, and I don't know all the personnel, but it looks like they've made a real effort to find the 6'6", 6'7" guy that can guard and rebound and knock a three down. So this team's going to be really good. I mean, I'm excited to watch it, and I just think a lot. You look at Houston, Texas Tech, BYU, Arizona, Ohio State. Those are going to be the same teams that are going to show up this season. But it's fun just to watch them during the summer and see the growth. And I'm excited about it, man. I think it's going to be a really, really good year.
Coach Steve Cleveland joining us here on the KSL Sports Zone. So last week we spent a day mourning. The lottery didn't break the Jazz way, so we spent last Tuesday crying, pouting, being babies, because I thought we were afforded that. And I'm speaking collectively, obviously, for the Jazz fan, not personally. But I thought that, that was a disappointing night. But the next day, then, okay, that's over, and now you got to go about getting an opportunity to get a good player. And I think they can do that, particularly with this class this year. And I don't know if Ainge makes some moves. Maybe they can move up. Whatever's up his sleeve that he could pull off will be fascinating to see over the next month when we get to the draft last week of June. But disappointing at the same time, they have an opportunity to make their team significantly better. It's the way I look at it.
No, I don't think you have any other option other than to take that approach and that attitude. I mean, I could not believe it. That the Mavericks get the number one pick.
Yeah.
And what was, I don't know what the numbers were on
1.8% chance.
1.8% chance. That had to just be devastating. Everybody just deflated and concerned. And if anybody can do it, Danny can do it. And, through trades or what happens in this draft and what the circumstances might be. But that was, and you can't ignore that. I mean, that had a huge impact, and hopefully Danny and the whole group can find some guys there that nuggets that maybe people aren't aware of, or go to Europe and do what you got to do there. But you go through that grind for 82 games and just literally shut the thing down, thinking that and hopeful that you're going to be able to turn this thing around. So emotionally and mentally for the coaching staff, the GM, everybody that involved there, that had to be really, really hard. And I haven't talked to Danny. I haven't seen Danny since that time. But that'll be interesting because I'd asked him about, where the draft was going before and what was happening. And they were excited about, the potential of getting a pick and changing the program and thinking that Cooper Flagg might be, in the Jazz uniform. And that obviously didn't happen. But, hopefully in the next month here, as we go through the combine, go through all this draft process, that they can make some moves that allow this team to start winning again. Because there's probably 3 or 4 teams tanking most of the year to trying to get that pick.
Right. Yeah. 4.
Yeah. And so to have that happen, man, that's like a serious punch to the gut. And you wake up in the morning and realize, wow, we've got to start all over again.
Yeah.
And I think the fan base is so loyal here and so good here. But even the fan base had to be really, really disappointed that, we weren't going to see the magic of a Cooper Flagg or whomever come to the Utah Jazz. So I felt terrible for them, and hopefully they'll work through it and get themselves in a position where they can be more competitive. But it might be another rebuilding year. I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody in the know there. I talked to Danny several times, but never recently. And so we'll see what happens. But it's a bitter pill to swallow, I'll tell you that.
Okay, that's Steve Cleveland giving us some insight to BYU basketball and Brian Santiago for sure. On the topic of basketball, we've got to hit that. Tim McComb is going to be joining me this morning. DJ is off. And last night was Game 1 in the Western Conference Finals, and the Oklahoma City Thunder won easily, 114-88. And as typical, when I look at the losing team, I go right to the shooting percentages. Sure enough, you've got Minnesota at 35% from the free throw line, or not the free throw line, from the field, 35% from the field, and 29% from three. I mean, it's so simple. It seems like it boils that down. I know there's strategy that goes into it with defense and all those types of things. I buy all that. And then you look at Oklahoma City. Their shooting percentages. Why Majerus always went to field goal defense to determine if his team was going to win or not, and it had to be in the 30s, anything above the 30s, and he pitched a fit. Well, you look at Oklahoma City right now. If I'm Chris Pinch, I'm pitching a fit because they shot an even 50% from the field, 41 of 82, and 52% from the three-point line, 11 of 24. Yeah, You can draw this game up and make it all complicated as you want, but ball's got to go in the hoop, doesn't it? That's what it boils down to, for sure. That's what it always boils down to. And you had Anthony Edwards was only 5 of 13, and not bad, 3 of 8 from 3, but only 13 field goals. Julius Randle was 9 of 13. Nobody else was really much. Guys off the bench couldn't do anything. And you had the Thunder, man, they're shooting the ball well. The interesting thing, there are 2 All-Stars, Jalen Williams and SGA. SGA was only 10 of 27, and Jalen Williams was 7 of 18. So that bodes well if you're thinking in terms of, okay, well, everybody else shot the ball well, that's for sure. Their bench shot the ball great. I mean, they only missed 3 shots off the bench, yeah. And a couple of guys in garbage time because the game got away. But it's not like they dominated by any stretch as far as those 2 stars. Everybody else shot the ball well, and they have a convincing victory. Okay, now we've got the other series, New York and Indiana, getting underway tonight on the eastern side of the bracket to see who is going to take that series. Oh, man, I don't know. I guess maybe, I don't know, New York? I don't have a feel for it. I can't really say. I'm not really sure. But we'll hit that, see what the coach, Tim Lacombe, thinks about it. Stay with us. We will get to what's trending coming up next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.